Welcome to another RaiderPower.com mailbag. I'm Jarret Johnson. I'm happy to say I'm joined once again by senior writer Joe Yeager. Joe, how you doing today?
Yeah, doing pretty good. How you doing?
I'm all right. I'm ready to dive into another round of questions. We're going to start with our own Cameron Brock. Writer Cameron Brock has a question about possibly renewing the rivalry with Arizona, from the old border conference days. Joe, would you like to see that rivalry renewed?
Well, now it's not like I go all the way back to the border conference.
Senior writer once again.
Yeah, actually, I do go back quite a ways with Arizona, though, because the very, very first Tech football game that I have any recollection of was 1978, the season opener, Texas Tech versus Arizona, and a guy by the name of Ron Reeves from Lubbock and Monterey High School, as a true freshman, came off the bench and led Texas Tech to an upset victory over Arizona. So I have sort of a sentimental attachment to Arizona. I kind of like beating those guys. Therefore, I would be quite thrilled and happy to see Texas Tech resume that old traditional rivalry with Arizona. And as you know, generally I don't like playing very tough teams in the non-conferences, as we discussed in a previous mailbag. But if you're going to play a very respectable opponent, I think Arizona is good as any. And where should this be played? Well, I'm just a traditional guy, home and home.
Yeah, I agree. Cameron brought up the idea of maybe first of all, I got to point out 78. Wow, that was before I was born. Second of all, Cameron brought up the fact of maybe playing in Denver or El Paso for sure. Definitely not. In Old Mexico, no. I don't. I mean, I get
Mexico.
Yeah, I get what you're trying to do there, but and I'm not even sure if a game with Arizona is necessary. I get what y'all are saying, but already playing Arizona State. There are some people that do remember that rivalry, but I guess it'd be a good game. It'd be better than Stephen F. Austin, in my opinion. Rawls Landman wants to know about he mentioned your story on Rodney Hall, fullback Rodney Hall, on the Critical 20 series that Joe's doing, and if I agreed with his take that he is one of the Critical 20 players. I have to say, yes, I do agree.
It's tough having to agree with me.
It is. But I do in this case. And for the reason is I do see him playing a significant role in the running game, as a blocker, as a receiver, as a pass block, both in the running game and also as a pass blocker. So, yes, I totally agree. For me, he came out of nowhere, like most people, in the Holiday Bowl, and I look for him to play a prominent role in 2014. Liger 901 wants to know if the forums are going to get the same kind of refresh or a new look and improved functionality, kind of going along the lines of our refresh we had earlier this week, with great new sleek look. I've gotten received great feedback from all y'all. I'm glad y'all like it. Scout stepping up its game, and yes, Scout is going to be instituting several changes, improvements in the months leading up to the season. The forums are going to be tweaked, not totally changed, but the functionality will be better and the look will be sleeker, more this century. Doorjack TT05 has a hypothetical. It's a good hypothetical question. If Tech were to only land one more four-star blue chip player for the 2015 class, at what position would you want it to be, Joe?
Well, in my opinion, and I think this is probably not terribly controversial, but the three most critical positions in football today are quarterback, defensive tackle, interior defensive line, and cornerback.
Yeah.
I think if you can get extremely good athletes at all three of those positions, you've got a very, very good foundation for a heck of a football team. Now, Tech has already set at quarterback, and I don't know, call me superstitious, but Tech has just had so many problems and strange things with defensive tackles, and then you can go all the way back, heck, to Gabe Rivera if you want. And I wrote an article about this once. Tech has just not had luck with and most recently Delvon Simmons was one who didn't pan out. So, I'm going to go with the cornerback. I would love to see Tech pull in a high 4, 5-star shutdown corner who just blankets one side of the field and you don't have to worry about it. Then all you got to do is find a competent corner on the other side, and your secondary's in very good shape. In this age of the passing attack, and particularly in the Big 12, the premium on that can't be overestimated.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. But for me, I would like Tech to get 5 4-star defensive linemen every year, and then 3-star or whatever for the next 3 years. And I think that would do wonders for the program. You got to throw offensive linemen though in there with the most important positions, because it's all about the passing game. So quarterback's number one. Then you could kind of debate whether the pass rush or blocking for that quarterback or in the back end, the secondary is the most important at the next 2, 3, 4 spots. So if not D lineman, then I wouldn't mind getting another big old bad boy on the offensive line. Tech has to improve in the trenches. I know it sounds cliche. Sometimes cliches are exist because they've been proven true over the course of time. So, I definitely D lineman than offensive lineman. Next question is from Old Texan 1953. He has a question about Vincent Testaverde, the walk-on quarterback coming in this summer. He wants to know if I think he has a D1 arm. I haven't seen him in person, but as far as from seeing his film, and his film is limited because, remember, he hadn't played a full season of high school football. He didn't even play organized football until his junior year in high school, and then his senior year was his first year to really to start the season as a starter, and he got hurt. Or he had a emergency appendectomy towards the end of the year. So he hasn't played a full season. We don't have a full season of body of work. But all that being said, yes, he has great genes, great bloodlines. He does have a D1 arm, in my opinion. But we're just going to have to see how he develops. He's very raw. Out of all the walk-ons, I'm not necessarily willing to say he's the most talented, but he does look like he would have the body type and the arm that you'd be looking for the air raid attack. SM8588, this is a great question. I wanted to write a story. I ran out of time. I may still do it. I want to write a story about it, but basically he's concerned with the lack of draft picks from the Big 12 in the 2014 draft. And he wanted to get a breakdown of it. I have that breakdown for you, and it is alarming, if you will. In 2014, this last draft, the Big 12 had only 17 draft picks, and that was fifth behind the SEC with 49, the ACC with 42, the Pac-12 with 34, the Big 10 with 30, and then the Big 12 came in fifth with 17, just one more than the Mountain West. And if you look, you asked about in comparison to the last couple of years, it's been a steady decline. Obviously, there's 2 less teams than there have been for most of the Big 12's existence, but it is pretty alarming. In 2010 and 2011, the Big 12 had 30 each year, 30 draft picks, which is very good. As a matter of fact, 2011 is only 8 less than the SEC that year. But then the following year, 2012, went down to 26. And then 2013, it was 22. And then here we are with 17. That's a pretty, obviously, a steady decline of talent going to the next level. And that's, a pretty good indicator of a lack of talent or a dwindling of talent in the Big 12. I think you could point to several reasons, but obviously the less teams, Texas not having one single draft pick, that hadn't happened since the 30s. 37. So there are a number of reasons. Do you have a opinion on this and why this is happening, or do you think it's alarming, as I said, or not?
Well, this is new to me. I just now saw this. But to an extent, I think these things are cyclical. You may see a decline for a few years, and then it comes back up, and you see the same thing, with the exception of the SEC. You see the same thing on the field of play where a conference rises and does very well and then declines. So, I think there's hope that eventually the Big 12 will just naturally pull out of it, and this is just all in the course of things and the way things go. But it's pretty eye-opening, no doubt about it.
Well, I think, you look at losing Missouri and Texas A&M, which has pretty good talent. I mean, they were middling in the Big 12. I mean, Missouri had a couple of good years. A&M, of course, had won that one Big 12 title, but they were kind of middling. But you replaced them with West Virginia and TCU, who especially this year, West Virginia was down, and TCU's talent level, even for them, has been down compared to the Rose Bowl days.
And again, Texas with no draft picks. I mean, now that's just a freakish.
It doesn't happen, yeah.
You know, that's not going to happen next year, I'm sure.
Right, but great question. And then we have a couple of questions that are very similar. They're both about Texas Tech's newest commit, Jonathan Giles. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to see any of his film or anything about him, but he is he's an athletic playmaker. He's played quarterback down at Fort Bend Elkins. He had over 3,000 total yards last season, 1,000 on the ground. A very, very good playmaker. He's going to play inside receiver for Tech. That's where they're looking at playing him. But Captain Popsicle and Red Raider 28 both said while they like him, they're really nervous about what this means about the rest of the wide receiver class. And, if this is going to keep them Tech from going after the Tyron Johnsons and some of the other guys. And I can say unequivocally no. You got to have the athletes at receiver to make the air raid go. I mean, there's been times where I've really thought since Leach has started, with the air raid attack and up all the way through what Kingsbury's doing, where I thought that wide receiver was actually more important than quarterback, just because how they've been able to plug so many quarterbacks in there. I don't really think that's the case, but wide receiver is a close second. You got to have those athletes at wide receiver to make this offense work. And Tech is going to always target. If you look at their breakdown, if you look at the recruiting board, the breakdown, the most people that Tech offers are receivers. They offer over 20 receivers. I mean, they really go after as many. I'm looking at 5. I'm looking at least 5 receivers again this year. You have Giles. You have definitely Tyron Johnson is a guy they're not going to turn away. He's a top 5 receiver in the class. Jalen Austin, who's going to decide May 21st. I know Tech is definitely expecting him to commit. There's some other guys like Oregon and USC, the Bamas that are lurking there. But I definitely see Tech taking 5, and they're not going to be turning away that top end talent. TTU Gunslinger wants to know about Patrick Mahomes. Joe, I don't think I've talked to you about Mahomes a lot. Mahomes been getting a lot of attention as the top athlete in the country, high school, a prep athlete in the country for basically just being a standout, obviously in football, 4-star prospect, baseball, a top prospect in Texas, and then basketball. He's an all-region player. He's a double-double guy, wing player. What's your take on Mahomes? Do you think he lives up to that kind of hype from what you've seen and heard about him?
Well, I mean, he's got certainly, as far as at Texas Tech goes, he's got every opportunity to come in and be a crucial component to the team right away. I mean, as coming in and there's really no competition to speak of to be the backup behind Davis Webb. And so, I mean, we certainly hope that he lives up to that billing, because there's a good chance that he's going to be pressed into a very, very important role.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. Obviously, he has to be all that he's been billed, and I think he is. I mean, you never really know until you see him, and no matter how good the athlete is, until they get to the next level. But he certainly has maximized and done almost everything he could possibly do from an individual standpoint at the high school level, and appears to have all the measurables and intangibles that you'd want from your quarterback.
We just hope he winds up here.
Yeah, that's the big key to me, is if he makes it to campus. And that's going to do it for this week. I really appreciate another great round of questions. Joe, I really appreciate you joining me on the show again.
Glad to be here again.
Until next week.